The first warning came from Europa Station. The small mining colony on Jupiter's moon had 50 people working there. They were drilling for water ice when their sensors detected something in space. Something big. Something moving fast. The station manager sent a message to Earth. The transmission was short and filled with static. Multiple contacts entering the system. Thousands of them. They match the profile for swarm bioships. They're coming straight for us. We're evacuating, but we won't make it in time. Tell our families we love them. Then the signal went dead. On Earth, alarms sounded in military command centers around the world. General Patricia Hayes stood in the main operations room beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens covered every wall, showing data from sensors across the solar system. Red dots filled those screens. Each dot was a swarm ship. "They're 3 weeks early," said Colonel Gary Bennett. He looked pale as he studied the numbers. "We weren't expecting them until next month." Patricia kept her voice calm even though her heart was racing. "Alert all units. Move to battle positions. The swarm is here." Above Earth, in the Council's orbital station, panic spread through the diplomatic corps. Ships belonging to various alien species began launching from the docking bays. They were fleeing. The Council members who had laughed at Earth's tanks were now running to save themselves. Vexthor watched the evacuation from his office. Part of him wanted to leave too. The swarm was death. Everyone knew that. But he found himself staying. He needed to see what the humans would do. High Counselor Zephrani appeared beside him, the energy being pulsed with worried colors. "We must begin immediate evacuation of Earth's population. There is no time for their government to debate. We must act now." "Contact Ambassador Grant," Vexthor ordered. Lisa appeared on the view screen moments later. Behind her, Danny Foster and Kyle Morrison stood at attention. Their faces were serious but not afraid. "Ambassador, the swarm has arrived," Zephrani announced. "We are prepared to begin evacuating your people immediately. You have 6 hours before the swarm reaches Earth orbit." Lisa looked directly at the energy being. Her voice was steady and clear. "The United Earth government declines your offer. We will defend our world." The silence that followed felt heavy. Then Vexthor spoke. "You cannot be serious. Your weapons cannot harm the swarm. This is not bravery. This is suicide." "We know what we're doing," Lisa replied. "Trust us, or trust you?" Vexthor's voice rose. "Your primitive tanks cannot hurt bioships. The swarm has crystalline armor that repairs itself. Their fighters number in the millions. You have no orbital defenses, no energy shields, no plasma cannons. What do you have?" "Tanks," Lisa said simply. "We have tanks." On Earth's surface, at Forward Operating Base Sentinel in Australia, Patricia Hayes walked among her troops. Hundreds of soldiers stood beside their vehicles. The tanks gleamed in the sunlight, their armor reflecting light in strange ways. "At ease," Patricia called out. The soldiers relaxed but remained attentive. "You all know why you're here. The swarm is coming. The galaxy has given up on us. They think we're too primitive to fight back. They think we're going to die today." She paused, looking at the faces around her, young and old, men and women. Different races and backgrounds, all united by one thing. They were human, and they would not surrender. What the Council doesn't know is that we've been preparing for this moment for a long time. The technology we found on Kepler 442b wasn't alien. It was human, left by our ancestors who walked the stars thousands of years ago. They left us weapons. They left us knowledge. And today we're going to use it. Staff Sergeant Chris Palmer stood beside his tank. The machine was called Warhammer. Its dark armor seemed to absorb light. His driver, Specialist Nicole Barnes, ran final system checks. 10 minutes until first contact, Nicole reported. "Swarm scouts entering upper atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean." Patricia nodded. "All units power up. Show them what we can do." One by one, the tanks came alive. But they didn't roar like normal engines. They hummed. A deep sound that you could feel in your bones. The armor plating began to glow. Patterns appeared on the surface like circuit boards but alive. Moving. Shifting. In orbit, Vexthor watched his sensors with confusion. "What are those energy readings?" "That's impossible. Those signatures match quantum entanglement drives. But those are theoretical. We can't even build them in laboratories. How are they powering ground vehicles with them?" He didn't get to finish his thought. The swarm's first wave hit Earth's atmosphere. Thousands of bioships descended like a swarm of locusts. Each ship was the size of a small airplane. Their crystalline bodies glittered as they dove toward the surface. Mandibles opened, revealing weapons that glowed with heat. Captain Brandon Cole locked onto the lead formation with his targeting system. "Gunner, you are clear to fire." Amy Rogers pressed her hand against the firing interface. The tank responded instantly. A beam of blue-white energy shot into the sky. It hit the first bioship dead center. The alien craft didn't explode. It didn't crash. It simply vanished. One moment it was there. The next moment it was gone. Converted into pure energy in a flash of purple light. "Target destroyed," Amy said. She was already tracking the next ship. "These weapons are incredible." Across the battlefield, hundreds of tanks opened fire. The sky lit up like fireworks. Swarm ships died by the dozens, by the hundreds. The aliens had never faced weapons like these before. Energy weapons that didn't just damage things. They unmade them. They broke matter apart at the quantum level. Aboard the Council observation ship, alarms blared. Vexthor stared at his displays. His multiple eyes were wide with shock. "This is impossible. Those weapons use technology we only dream about. The energy needed should require a fusion reactor the size of a building. How are they powering them?" Zephrani pulsed with colors that showed profound surprise. "The humans have been hiding their true capabilities. But where did they get this technology?" On the ground, Patricia allowed herself a small smile. The first wave of the swarm was falling from the sky in burning pieces. Phase 1 complete. All units prepare for ground engagement. They'll send their heavy forces next. She was right. The swarm changed tactics. Larger bioships began descending. These were massive. The size of office buildings. They were bred for ground combat. Their armor was thick enough to survive nuclear weapons. At least that's what the Council's data said. "Here they come," Chris Palmer muttered. The huge creatures touched down across the desert. Each one shook the ground when it landed. All units advanced, the tanks surged forward. But they didn't roll on treads. They glided. They hovered above the ground, supported by the same quantum drives that powered their weapons. They moved fast, faster than any tank should be able to move. The swarm's heavy assault beasts charged to meet them. The ground shook with their footsteps. They were terrifying, massive, powerful, but they had never fought humans before. Brandon's tank reached the first beast at full speed. The creature swung a limb the size of a tree trunk. Brandon thought the command to dodge, and the tank responded instantly. It slid sideways through the air, avoiding the blow. "Fire!" Brandon ordered. Amy fired at point-blank range. The beam hit the creature's leg. The armor there was thick, layered, designed to withstand anything. It held for 1 second, 2 seconds. Then it cracked. The creature's leg collapsed. The beast fell, its own weight crushing it into the sand. "Target down," Nicole reported, moving to next target. All across the battlefield, similar fights were happening. The swarm's heavy forces were tough. They took multiple hits to bring down. But they did go down. Earth's weapons were working. In orbit, more swarm ships kept arriving. They poured out of faster-than-light jumps like a flood. Thousands. Tens of thousands. The swarm was committing serious forces to this invasion. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were finding resistance. Admiral Kyle Morrison watched from his command ship, the Defiant. It was one of 3 prototype warships Earth had built in secret, hidden on the far side of the moon, built using the same recovered technology as the tanks. "Multiple swarm carriers entering orbit," reported Commander Helen Price. "They're deploying more fighters." Kyle studied the tactical display. There were too many targets. Even with their advanced weapons, Earth's forces were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. "Launch all fighters," Kyle ordered, "and get me a firing solution on that lead carrier." Earth's fighter craft launched from hidden bases on the moon. They looked like normal aerospace fighters, but like the tanks, they had quantum drives. They moved through space with impossible speed and grace. Lieutenant Jake Morrison led the first squadron. He was Kyle's son, though he had refused any special treatment because of it. He had earned his position through skill and hard work. "All fighters spread out," Jake commanded. "Hit-and-run tactics. Don't let them surround you." The space battle began. Swarm biofighters swarmed like angry insects. But Earth's pilots had better ships, better weapons, better training. They darted through the enemy formations, firing precisely. Each shot destroyed a target. Back on the ground, the battle continued. Hours passed. The sun began to set. The desert was covered in the remains of destroyed swarm creatures. Their crystalline armor littered the sand like broken glass. Sophie. The battle for Earth entered its second week. The Void Swarm had committed more forces than they had used against any other world. They should have conquered the planet in days. Instead, they were losing. Commander Vexthor had not slept in 3 days. He couldn't sleep. He sat in his office aboard the council station, watching the battle unfold on his screens. Every hour brought new impossible things. Human weapons that broke the laws of physics. Human vehicles that moved in ways that should not be possible. Human soldiers who fought with skill and courage that matched any warrior race in the galaxy. "Get me Ambassador Grant," Vexthor said to his assistant. Now, Lisa appeared on his view screen minutes later. Her hair was messy. Dark circles showed under her eyes. Behind her, holographic displays showed battle data from dozens of locations around Earth. "Commander Vexthor," Lisa said. She sounded tired but not defeated. "How can I help you?" Vexthor leaned forward, all of his eyes focused on her. "Your species has much to explain, Ambassador. Those weapons, those vehicles, that technology should not exist. We have scanned them. They use principles of physics that the Council has declared impossible to weaponize, yet you are doing it." Lisa smiled slightly. "Impossible according to the current Council races. But we are not the first humans to reach the stars, Commander. We are just the first ones you have met." High Counselor Zephrani joined the transmission. The energy being's colors cycled rapidly, showing intense curiosity. "Explain this statement." Lisa took a deep breath. This was the moment Earth had been preparing for. The revelation that would change everything about how the galaxy saw humanity. 70 years ago, the Council found us, Lisa began. "You thought we were primitive, barely able to leave our own planet. You were right, in a way. We had forgotten so much. But 6 months before you arrived, we found something. On the planet Kepler 442b, a cache of technology buried beneath the surface." She pulled up files on her display. Images of ancient structures appeared. Buildings that looked both alien and familiar. Technology that gleamed despite being thousands of years old. "Human technology," Lisa continued, "from a colony established 50,000 years ago. Before the Ice Age on Earth, before recorded history, the people who built that colony had mastered technology far beyond anything the Council possesses today. They had quantum manipulation, matter conversion, faster than light travel that did not need jump gates." Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep agitation. "That is impossible. We have studied your evolution. Humanity evolved on Earth. You have fossils, DNA evidence, a clear evolutionary path. We evolved on Earth," Lisa agreed. "That part is true. But some of us left. They built an empire across hundreds of worlds. Then they vanished. We don't know why. But they left markers. Beacons pointing back to Earth, and they left instructions on how to rebuild what was lost." The council chamber where Zephrani floated was completely silent. Other council members had joined the transmission. They all listened with growing shock and fear. "Where are these ancient humans now?" Zephrani asked. "We don't know," Lisa admitted. "The records we found are incomplete. There are references to something called the fracture. A civil war, maybe, or a disaster. Whatever happened, it broke their empire apart. Some colonies survived. Most did not. Earth was one that survived, but we forgot everything. We started over from scratch. On Earth's surface, the battle continued. Lieutenant Brandon Cole and his crew were fighting near what used to be Tokyo. The city was evacuated. Now it was a battleground. Swarm bio-creatures moved through the streets. Brandon's tank hunted them. "Target acquired," Amy Rogers reported. "Building 7, 3rd floor. The swarm had learned to hide in buildings. Their crystalline armor could blend with glass and steel. But Earth sensors could detect the quantum signatures of living tissue." Brandon fired. The beam passed through the building wall without damaging it. Some kind of phase technology. It hit the swarm creature hiding inside. The creature vanished in a flash of light. "They are getting smarter," Brandon observed. "Using cover, setting ambushes, learning from their mistakes." "We are learning too," Amy said. "Every fight teaches us something new about these weapons." Nicole maneuvered the tank around a collapsed building. The vehicle moved with grace despite its size. They had been fighting for 8 days straight. They were exhausted, but they kept going. In Australia, Captain Sophie Grant's company was defending against a swarm hive ship that had managed to land intact. These massive vessels were mobile bases. They could produce thousands of warrior creatures every day. Destroying them was a priority. "We need to hit it with combined fire," Sophie told her company commanders. "Concentrate all our beams on the same point. Overload its defenses." 10 tanks arranged themselves in a precise formation. This was something they had practiced but never used in real combat. The ancient humans had called it harmonic amplification. When multiple quantum weapons fired at the same target with perfect timing, their power increased exponentially. "All units target the base of the hive ship," Sophie ordered. "Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, fire." 10 beams lanced out. They connected with each other, forming a lattice of pure energy. The combined power hit the hive ship like a hammer. The alien vessel's crystalline armor, which had withstood everything thrown at it, cracked, then shattered. The entire structure collapsed inward, imploding into a ball of compressed matter no larger than a basketball. Luis Martinez stared at the result. "Did we just compress a 3-kilometer ship into a marble?" "That is what happens when you reverse matter conversion," Sophie explained. "Instead of turning matter into energy, we turned it into super-dense mass. That sphere weighs as much as a small moon." Across the planet, similar victories were happening. The swarm was vast. They had numbers beyond counting. But humanity had weapons that turned those numbers into a weakness. Every ship destroyed was matter that could not regenerate. Every creature killed was biomass that could not be recycled. But the cost was high. 12 tanks had been destroyed. 47 soldiers were dead. Over 100 wounded. Each loss hurt. Each name would be remembered. At the Nevada Command Center, General Patricia Hayes reviewed casualty reports with Colonel Gary Bennett. "How long can we maintain this pace?" Gary asked. Patricia looked at production reports from the hidden factories on the moon. "Longer than the swarm expects. The ancient humans left us more than weapons. They left us manufacturing capabilities. We are building new tanks faster than we are losing them." "The council is demanding a meeting," Gary informed her. "They want full disclosure of our capabilities. They want to know everything about the ancient human technology." Patricia smiled coldly. "They can wait. We are busy saving our planet. They can schedule an appointment." In space, Admiral Kyle Morrison commanded the Defiant in a running battle against swarm capital ships. The enemy had sent their largest vessels, biocruisers the size of mountains. Each one could destroy a city with a single weapon discharge. "Target the lead cruiser," Kyle ordered. "Prepare main cannon." The Defiant's main weapon was something special. The ancient humans had called it a phase-shift cannon. It fired projectiles that existed partially outside normal space. The rounds could pass through shields and armor as if they were not there. "Firing solution locked," reported Commander Helen Price. "Fire." The cannon discharged. The round was invisible to normal sensors. It phased through the swarm cruiser's outer hull, phased through its armor, phased through its internal structure. Then it materialized inside the ship's core. The result was catastrophic. The swarm cruiser began to fold in on itself. A localized gravity well formed, crushing the ship from the inside out. Escort vessels caught in the effect were pulled in, adding to the destruction. "Target destroyed," Helen reported. Singularity collapsing. No danger to nearby friendly vessels. Jake Morrison, flying his fighter nearby, watched the display with awe. "That is one hell of a weapon." Back on the council station, the mood had changed completely. The aliens who had mocked humanity now watched with a mixture of respect and fear. Respect for what humans could do. Fear of what it meant. Vexthor composed a message to the full council. "We must reconsider our relationship with humanity. They possess technology that could benefit the entire galactic community. I propose we extend an offer of full council membership, with all rights and privileges." Other council members agreed. Some did so because they saw opportunity, others because they saw danger. Better to have humanity as an ally than an enemy. The formal proposal reached Lisa within hours. Full membership, trade rights, access to council technology and resources. Everything Earth had been denied before. Lisa read the proposal twice. Then she set it aside and contacted Patricia Hayes. "They want to be our friends now," Lisa said. "After 3 weeks of fighting alone, now they want to help." Patricia's face on the view screen was grim. "What do you want to do?" Lisa thought about the soldiers who had died defending Earth. She thought about the aliens who had laughed at humanity's tanks. She thought about the future. We help them, Lisa decided, not because they deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do. The ancient human empire failed, maybe because they isolated themselves, maybe because they thought they were better than everyone else. We will not make that mistake. The war entered its third week. Earth's surface bore the scars of battle. Cities had been evacuated and damaged. Forests had burned. Deserts had been turned to glass by energy weapons. But the planet still stood. And more importantly, humanity was winning. Captain Sophie Grant stood in what used to be the Amazon rainforest. Her unit of 15 tanks had been holding this position for 6 days. The jungle was mostly gone now, burned away by swarm weapons and human counterfire. What remained looked more like a wasteland than a forest. Another drop incoming, reported Private First Class Ryan Cooper. He was monitoring their sensors. Looks like heavy-class creatures. About 200 of them. Sophie checked her tactical display. They had been fighting non-stop. Her crew was exhausted. The tank's ammunition for conventional weapons was nearly gone. But the energy weapons never ran out of power as long as their quantum cores functioned. All units, defensive formation Alpha, Sophie ordered. Make every shot count. The swarm bioforms crashed through what was left of the jungle canopy. They fell like meteors shaking the ground when they landed. Each creature stood 3 stories tall. Their crystalline armor gleamed in the sunlight. They moved fast despite their size, charging toward the human position with terrifying speed. Engaging, Sophie said. Her targeting computer locked onto the lead creature. Sergeant Luis Martinez, her gunner, fired. The blue-white beam caught the creature in its center mass. For a moment, nothing happened. The armor was thick, designed to take punishment. Then cracks spread across its surface like a spider web. The creature's legs collapsed. It fell forward dead before it hit the ground. Around her position, the other tanks fired in sequence. They had learned to time their shots, create a wall of energy that nothing could pass through. But these new swarm creatures were learning too. Some had developed reflective plating that deflected the first shot. Others moved in zigzag patterns that made targeting difficult. They are adapting faster than before, Luis observed. We need support. Negative, Sophie replied. Every other sector is just as busy. We hold this position alone. The battle turned into a brutal fight. The tanks maneuvered between the stumps of massive trees. They used the terrain for cover. When one swarm creature got too close to Sophie's tank, she activated the close defense system. Energy barriers materialized around the vehicle. The creature struck the barrier with its limbs. The impact sent feedback through the energy field. The creature was thrown backward, stunned. Target marked, Ryan called out. Sophie fired again. This time the creature did not get back up. The fight lasted 2 hours. When it finally ended, the jungle clearing was filled with dead swarm creatures, their crystalline bodies slowly dissolving in the tropical heat. Luis climbed out of the tank to stretch. His legs were cramped from sitting in the gunner's seat for so long. How much longer can we keep this up? As long as we need to, Sophie said. But she was worried. The swarm seemed endless. For every creature they killed, more arrived. Earth was winning, but it was a slow, grinding war of attrition. In space, the battle was even larger. Admiral Kyle Morrison commanded a small fleet of 3 prototype warships, the Defiant, the Valiant, and the Resolute. They were humanity's only space combat vessels equipped with ancient technology, and they were facing a swarm armada of hundreds of ships. Admiral, multiple swarm command carriers detected entering Mars orbit, reported Commander Helen Price. They are using the Red Planet as a staging area. Kyle studied the holographic display. The swarm was adapting their strategy too. Instead of attacking Earth directly, they were building up forces in the outer system, planning a massive assault that would overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers. Helm, set course for Mars orbit, Kyle ordered. We stop them there before they can organize. Lieutenant Isaac Torres at the helm raised his concern. Sir, there are over 50 capital ships in that formation. We will be heavily outnumbered. Then we use speed and surprise, Kyle said. The swarm expects us to defend Earth. They will not expect an attack on their staging area. The 3 human warships accelerated toward Mars. Their quantum drives pushed them to speeds that made council ships look slow. The swarm escorts opened fire when they detected the approaching vessels. Plasma beams hot enough to melt steel lanced through space, but the human ships were too fast, too maneuverable. The swarm weapons could not track them properly. It was like trying to hit a hummingbird with a thrown rock. In range of lead carrier, Helen announced. Firing solution locked. Fire main cannon. The Defiance phase shift cannon discharged. The projectile existed partially outside normal space. It passed through the swarm escort ships like they were ghosts. Then it struck the command carrier directly in its center. The effect was immediate and devastating. The massive bioship began to fold in on itself, a localized gravity well formed, crushing the vessel from inside. Smaller ships caught in the effect were pulled in and destroyed. Target destroyed, Helen reported. Moving to next target, Kyle nodded. All ships weapons free. Destroy as many carriers as possible before they can organize a defense. The 3 human warships tore through the swarm formation, like sharks through a school of fish. Their weapons were devastating. Their speed made them almost impossible to hit. In 20 minutes, they destroyed 15 capital ships and sent the rest fleeing. But the victory came at a cost. The Valiant took a direct hit from a swarm plasma cannon. The ship's shields held but barely. Half its power systems were damaged. Valiant reports major damage, a communication officer informed Kyle. They are withdrawing to Earth for repairs. Kyle watched the swarm fleet scatter. Let them go. We have done enough damage for today. Set course for Earth, we need to regroup. Back at the Galactic Council Station, the mood had completely transformed. The species who had mocked humanity now watched every battle with a mixture of awe and concern. Vexthor sat in an emergency council session. Representatives from 93 species had gathered to discuss the human situation. We must extend an offer of full membership immediately, Vexthor argued. Humanity has proven they possess technology that could benefit all council races. More importantly, they can fight the swarm. They are winning where 17 other civilizations failed. High Counselor Zephrani pulsed with thoughtful colors. I agree. But we must also understand what we are inviting into our community. These ancient humans, whoever they were, had technology that surpasses anything we have achieved. What happened to them? Why did their empire fall? Perhaps the current humans can answer that question, suggested another council member. A being that resembled a floating crystal. They have had time to study the ancient sites. Ambassador Lisa Grant was invited to address the full council. She stood before them no longer as a supplicant but as an equal. The chamber was packed with representatives who wanted to understand this new power in the galaxy. The ancient human empire left us more than weapons, Lisa began. They left us warnings. A hologram appeared above the chamber floor. It showed a map of the galaxy with red zones spreading across it like a disease. 50,000 years ago, humanity controlled over 300 star systems. They had technology that made them nearly unstoppable, but they faced an enemy they could not defeat, themselves. The chamber erupted in surprised sounds. Various species expressed shock through their unique forms of communication. Lisa raised her hand for silence. The records speak of something called the fracture. Different human factions had different ideas about the future. Some wanted to transcend physical form. Others wanted to seed new intelligent species throughout the galaxy. Some wanted to withdraw from galactic affairs completely. The disagreement turned into civil war. They destroyed themselves? Vexthor asked. They fragmented, Lisa corrected. Some became beings of pure energy. Others deliberately regressed, wiping their own memories and returning to primitive conditions. Earth was one of those regression colonies, a chance to start over without the burden of all that power and knowledge. She paused, letting that information sink in. The technology caches we found were insurance policies, set to activate if humanity faced extinction, before we were ready to handle the responsibility of advanced technology. The swarm's attack triggered multiple sites. Now we have access to weapons and knowledge we barely understand. Zephrani pulsed with worried colors. And you think you can avoid making the same mistakes your ancestors made? We have to try, Lisa said. Which is why we are proposing something different. Not just council membership for Earth, but a new alliance. A coalition of species committed to mutual defense and shared technological advancement. We share what we found. You share what you have learned. We work together as equals. The proposal sparked intense debate. Some species were enthusiastic. They saw opportunity in partnership with humanity. Others were worried. They feared humanity might repeat the mistakes of their ancestors. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. The Terran Alliance was born, a new coalition dedicated to fighting the swarm and building a better future. On Earth, soldiers watched the Council's decision broadcast on their displays. In foxholes and tank crews and command centers, humanity celebrated. They had not only survived the swarm's attack, they had earned the galaxy's respect. Brandon Cole sat on top of his tank W. 6 months after the swarm's defeated Earth, Major Brandon Cole stood in a place he never imagined existed. The ruins of the ancient human colony on Kepler 442b stretched before him. Buildings that had survived 50,000 years reached toward an alien sky. Their surfaces still hummed with power, as if they had been built yesterday instead of millennia ago. His team worked carefully through the complex. Military personnel and civilian scientists moved together, documenting everything they found. Each discovery raised new questions about who the ancient humans were and what had happened to them. Dr. Natalie Cross, the lead archaeologist, stood beside a wall that glowed softly in the dim light. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Our ancestors built this. Then they walked away from it. Why would they do that? Brandon touched the wall. It felt warm under his fingers. Maybe we will find the answer here. General Hayes wants a complete survey before we start using any more of the ancient technology. They had learned to be cautious. The weapons and vehicles that saved Earth were just the beginning. The ancient humans had left entire cities, ships, artificial intelligence systems, and technologies that current humanity could not fully understand. Rushing forward without knowledge could be dangerous. On Earth, the political landscape had completely changed. Ambassador Lisa Grant had been promoted to Secretary General of the United Earth Government. This new position was created to handle humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council and the newly formed Terran Alliance. She stood before the full council assembly in a chamber built to impress. 93 different species had representatives present. All of them wanted to understand the humans who had suddenly become a major power in galactic politics. The ancient human empire left us more than technology, Lisa began. Her voice was steady and confident. They left us a warning. A holographic display activated above the chamber floor. It showed the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago. Human-controlled systems were marked in blue. There were over 300 of them. Our ancestors controlled a significant portion of this galaxy, Lisa continued. They had technology that seemed like magic. Ships that could cross the galaxy in days. Weapons that could destroy stars. The ability to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. The representatives watched in silence. Some were fascinated. Others looked worried. But having power does not mean you know how to use it wisely, Lisa said. The records we have decrypted tell a troubling story. The ancient humans faced an enemy they could not defeat. Not the swarm, not some external threat. They faced themselves. The hologram changed. The blue systems began to turn different colors. Red, green, yellow, purple. The empire was fracturing. Different human factions developed different philosophies about the future of their species. Some believed humans should transcend physical form entirely, become beings of pure energy. Others wanted to remain biological but enhance themselves with technology. Some wanted to seed new intelligent species throughout the galaxy. Others wanted to withdraw from galactic affairs and focus on spiritual development. Vexthor leaned forward in his seat. And these disagreements led to conflict? More than conflict, Lisa replied. It led to civil war. The fracture, as they called it. Human fought human across hundreds of worlds. The war lasted for centuries. And when it ended, the empire was gone. High Counselor Zephrani pulsed with concerned colors. What happened to the survivors? They fragmented in every possible way, Lisa explained. Some did transcend physical form. They became the ascended, beings of pure energy who exist in higher dimensions. Others enhanced themselves so much they were no longer recognizably human. Some colonies regressed deliberately. They erased their own technology and memories, chose to start over from primitive conditions. She gestured to the display. Earth was one of those regression colonies. Our ancestors chose to forget everything, to give their descendants a chance to develop naturally, without the burden of ancient power and ancient mistakes. The chamber was silent as the representatives absorbed this information. It explained so much about humanity, why they seemed so primitive when first discovered, why they had developed so differently from other species, why they carried genetic markers that suggested a much older civilization. The technology caches we found were fail-safes, Lisa continued, insurance policies left by the generation that chose regression. They would activate if humanity faced extinction. Give us the tools we needed to survive. But only if we were threatened. Only if we had no other choice. And the swarm triggered these fail-safes, Zephrani observed. Yes, Lisa confirmed. Which brings me to why I am here today. We have access to technology we barely understand, power that destroyed our ancestors when they misused it. We need to be smarter than they were, which is why the Terran Alliance is so important. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from different species. Humanity will share the ancient technology. But we will do it carefully, slowly, with oversight and cooperation. We will not repeat the mistakes of the past. We will not let power corrupt us. We will not let differences tear us apart. The proposal she outlined was comprehensive. Joint research facilities, shared manufacturing, combined military forces, cultural exchange programs, everything designed to prevent isolation and promote cooperation. The vote took 3 hours of debate, but in the end it passed with overwhelming support. The galaxy was committing to working together in ways it never had before. Meanwhile, the military situation had evolved. General Patricia Hayes commanded the liberation of Draken 4, one of the 17 systems conquered by the swarm. This would be the first major offensive using combined human and council forces. Captain Sophie Grant's tank battalion led the ground assault. The planet's surface was covered in swarm biomass, a living carpet of alien tissue that had consumed the original civilization. Cities were gone. Forests were gone. Even the oceans had been partially converted to swarm material. It looks like hell, Luis Martinez said as their tank descended through the atmosphere. Below them, the planet's surface writhed and pulsed with unnatural life. We are here to clean it up, Sophie replied. Weapons hot. Prepare to engage on landing. The tanks touched down on what used to be farmland. Now it was covered in thick biomass that reached up like grasping fingers. Sophie did not hesitate. She activated the matter conversion weapons and began systematically destroying the swarm material. The biomass dissolved, broken down at the molecular level and converted to harmless compounds. It's like mowing an angry lawn, Luis joked. A lawn that tries to eat you. Around them, other tanks spread out in a grid pattern. They worked methodically, clearing sections of the planet bit by bit. Council ships provided air support, destroying any swarm bioships that tried to interfere. But the real target was deeper. Beneath the surface, in what used to be the planet's capital city, a swarm queen controlled the entire infestation. Intelligence reports said she was massive, the size of a building, protected by thick armor and thousands of warrior forms. Sophie's battalion advanced toward the hive complex. The biomass grew thicker as they approached. It formed walls and barriers trying to slow them down, but the tanks simply converted it to energy and kept moving. Contact, Ryan Cooper reported. Multiple warrior forms emerging from underground tunnels. The swarm warriors were different from anything they had fought on Earth. These had been customized for this planet, adapted to local conditions. They moved through the biomass like sharks through water. All units, defensive formation, Sophie ordered. Engage at will. The battle was fierce. The swarm threw wave after wave of warriors at the human forces, but the tanks held their ground. Their weapons carved through the attacking creatures with devastating efficiency. After 3 hours of constant combat, Sophie's tank finally breached the Queen Chamber. The space was enormous. A cavern that had once been a subway station. Now it was the heart of the swarm's presence on this world. The Queen filled most of the chamber. Her body pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Dozens of limbs extended from her massive form. Worker creatures tended to her constantly, feeding her biomass and carrying away eggs. Weapons locked, Luis reported. Waiting on your order, Captain. Sophie hesitated. The Queen was not attacking. Instead, she was communicating. Chemical signals filled the air. The translation software in Sophie's helmet struggled to interpret them. Why resist? The Queen seemed to say. Join the swarm. Unity. Peace. Perfection. Your version of unity destroys everything unique about the species you consume, Sophie replied. She did not know if the creature could understand her. That's not peace. That's genocide. We preserve. We improve. We perfect. You erase cultures. You destroy individuality. You take away choice. The Queen's patterns changed. The colors shifted to something the translation software could not identify. Then she attacked. Limbs as thick as tree trunks smashed toward Sophie's tank. Evasive action, Sophie shouted. Nicole threw the tank into reverse. The Queen's attack missed by inches. Fire! Fire everything! Luis opened fire with the main cannon. The matter conversion beam struck the Queen's armored carapace. For several seconds, nothing seemed to happen. The armor was incredibly thick, layered, designed to withstand almost anything. The council chamber stretched high above the diplomatic floor. Glass walls curved around the massive room, showing the stars beyond. Inside, representatives from 47 different alien species waited in their seats. Some had multiple arms. Others floated in containment fields. A few looked almost human, but their skin colors gave them away. Admiral Kyle Morrison walked to the center of the room. His uniform was pressed and clean, medals shining on his chest. Behind him stood Ambassador Lisa Grant and Captain Danny Foster. They knew this meeting would be difficult. Lisa activated the display system. Images appeared in the air above them. Earth's military tanks rolled across desert sand. The machines looked old but powerful. Heavy armor plated their sides. Long cannons extended from their turrets. A strange sound filled the chamber. It took Lisa a moment to realize what it was. Laughter. The aliens were laughing at them. Commander Vexthor stood up from his seat. He came from the Krillian Empire. His body looked like a giant insect with 6 legs and multiple eyes that gleamed in the light. When he spoke, his voice clicked and chirped, translated by the computer system. "These are your weapons? Metal boxes on wheels?" Vexthor's eyes seemed to dance with amusement. "You think these can defend your world?" Lisa kept her face calm. She had been warned this would happen. The other species thought humans were primitive. They looked at Earth's technology and saw nothing impressive. But she had to try to make them understand. "The Abrams tank has served humanity for over 200 years, Lisa explained. "We have improved it many times. It remains one of our strongest weapons," another alien stood. This one was called High Counselor Zeffirani. It had no solid body at all. Instead, it was pure energy contained inside a shimmering field. Colors swirled through its form. The translation computer said those colors meant it felt superior. "Ambassador Grant, we understand your attachment to these machines," Zeffirani said. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "But we must be honest with you. Your world faces the Void Swarm. This enemy has destroyed 17 civilizations. Your armor cannot hurt their scout ships. How will you fight their battle cruisers?" Danny felt his hands form fists. He had commanded tank units for 15 years. He had seen what these machines could do. But he also knew when to stay quiet and let the diplomats talk. Vexthor leaned forward in his seat. "Perhaps you should forget about defending yourselves. We can evacuate some of your people, maybe 40% of your population. We can save them before the swarm arrives in 6 months." The room fell silent. 40%. That meant 60% would die. More than 4 billion people left behind to face the swarm alone. Lisa's hands shook slightly as she turned off the display. "Humanity thanks the Council for this offer. We will discuss it with our government." The meeting ended. As the various species filed out of the chamber, Lisa could hear them talking. Some sounded sympathetic. Most sounded like they had already written Earth off as lost. Just another planet that would fall to the swarm. Kyle waited until they were alone before speaking. His face showed the strain of staying polite. "That went exactly as we expected. They don't know what we can really do," Danny said quietly. "Those displays only showed our standard units. They didn't see the classified divisions." "They don't need to see them yet," Lisa replied. "Let them think we're stupid. Let them believe we're using old weapons because we don't know any better." Kyle nodded slowly. A grim smile crossed his face. "General Patricia Hayes is already moving the real equipment into position. When the swarm comes, they'll learn what human engineering actually looks like." Far below on Earth's surface, the Nevada desert stretched for miles. Hidden beneath the sand were bunkers. Inside those bunkers sat rows of tanks. But these weren't the machines the Council had seen. These were different. Lieutenant Brandon Cole stood on top of one such tank. He ran his hand along the armor plating. The metal felt strange under his fingers. It seemed to drink in the sunlight instead of reflecting it. The surface was perfectly smooth without any welding marks or seams. "How long until we deploy?" Brandon asked. His gunner, Corporal Amy Rogers, checked her data pad. 3 weeks. Command wants us fully trained on the new systems before the swarm reaches our outer colonies." Brandon looked toward the horizon. The sun was setting. painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Somewhere beyond that sky, an enemy was coming, an enemy that had destroyed entire worlds. And somewhere in the Council's headquarters, aliens were deciding how many humans they could save. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Amy climbed up beside Brandon. She looked at the tank with a mixture of excitement and fear. "Do you think it will work? All of this?" "The test showed it works," Brandon said. "These machines can do things the Council thinks are impossible. We just need to prove it when the time comes." Inside the bunker, more soldiers prepared their vehicles. Each tank crew ran through system checks. The new weapons were unlike anything Earth had used before. They didn't fire bullets or missiles. They used something else entirely, something the scientists called quantum manipulation. Captain Sophie Grant walked among the crews. She was Lisa's younger sister, but she had chosen the military path instead of diplomacy. She stopped beside one tank and watched the crew work. "Are we ready for this?" asked Sergeant Luis Martinez. He was checking the targeting computer. Sophie considered the question. "We've trained for months. The simulations show we can hurt the swarm, but simulations aren't the same as real combat." "The Council doesn't believe in us," Luis said. "Good," Sophie replied. "Let them underestimate us. It will make our victory more satisfying." Back in orbit aboard the Council's station, Vexthor reviewed the data from the meeting. Something bothered him. The humans had seemed too calm, too confident. They had to know their situation was hopeless. So why weren't they panicking? He pulled up scans of Earth's military bases. The data showed exactly what he expected. Old technology, primitive weapons, nothing that could threaten the swarm. And yet something felt wrong. High Counselor Zeffirani appeared in his office, the energy being pulsed with concerned colors. "You sense it too?" "The humans are hiding something," Vexthor said. "But our scans show nothing unusual, just their old tanks and conventional weapons." "Perhaps they are simply in denial," Zeffirani suggested. "Some species cannot accept their own extinction. They fight until the end, even when fighting is pointless." Vexthor wasn't convinced. He had studied humans while preparing for this meeting. They were survivors. They adapted. They found ways to win even when they should lose. It was one reason the Council had considered them for membership at all. But what could they possibly do against the swarm? The enemy was vast. Their bioships numbered in the millions. Their armor regenerated damage. Their weapons could melt through any known material. 17 civilizations had tried to fight them. 17 civilizations had failed. Earth would be the 18th or so, Vexthor thought. Deep in the Nevada desert, as the sun disappeared below the horizon, the tanks powered up for a training exercise. Their hum was unlike any engine sound. It was smoother, deeper, almost alive. The armor plating began to glow with patterns that looked like circuit boards but moved like living things. Brandon Cole felt the tank respond to his neural interface. It was like the machine was part of him now. He thought about moving forward, and the tank glided across the sand without using its treads. It hovered, supported by forces that shouldn't exist according to Council physics. "Target acquired," Amy said. She placed her palm on the firing control. The weapon charged with a sound like singing crystal. Then it fired. The beam that shot from the cannon was blue-white and impossibly bright. It struck a target drone 5 miles away. The drone didn't explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Converted to pure energy. "Direct hit," Amy reported. "Target destroyed." Brandon smiled. In 6 months, the swarm would arrive. They would expect to find a primitive world armed with old technology. Instead, they would find something else entirely. They would find humanity armed with weapons that the galaxy thought were impossible. And they would learn why you should never underestimate the species that refuses to give up.